So hello and welcome to the Women in Biohealth Workshop. We have a few announcements and then we'll introduce our speaker. But before that, we wanted to just briefly recognize the life and accomplishments of Kathy Rasmussen. This will not sound like an adequate description at all, but she was a leader, mentor, and friend to many of us here at WiB. She was a stalwart advocate of women in the biohealth field. She was part of our steering committee. She ran a circle, and she was part of our professional development subcommittee leads. We would like to just ask you to take a moment today to reflect on her contributions. I know that she touched many of you personally who are here today at the workshop. We will all miss her. We do have a couple of announcements that we would like to share before we get started. On December 8th, BioForward will hold a members-only end-of-the-year celebration at 5:30 p.m. that we hope you can join. I believe that is a Garber feed meal. If that's not correct, please correct me.
That's correct.
That's correct.
In addition, the Women in Biohealth Steering Committee will be gathering soon to strategically plan the upcoming year. So please stay tuned. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Emily Smith. She is our dynamic leadership coach and speaker tonight, who is a company culture consultant and organizational trust expert through the Training and Development Studio, the PERC. She will be facilitating a trust workshop for us tonight as I get my tongue tied. Emily, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. Hello, everybody. I am super excited to be here and to talk to you all about trust tonight. Before I dive into the actual slides, I just want to mention that I have some questions that I'll be asking for all of you, and I'd love for you to put it in the chat or just feel free to unmute yourself. But if you have any questions, feel free to just kind of pop up and interrupt me during my presentation, because I'd love to answer questions in the moment. All right, so let me just get my slides up here. So what are we talking about today? We are going to be talking about throwing a trust party. We're going to talk about how to scale trust to maximize belonging and results. Like Christina said, my name is Emily. I'm a leadership coach and a culture consultant at the PERC. And again, the PERC is a premier coaching, training, and development studio. So we are on a mission to build the world's best leaders. And everything that we do, we make sure that we make it fun. We make it human to meet people where they're at. We make it safe, we make it different, and we make it last. I am also certified in EQ, 12 driving forces, and DISC assessments. So a couple of the fun things that I get to do in my role. So before we talk about trust, I want to take a moment to start with some confetti. Another thing about the PERC is that we love celebrating. We love confetti. So I'd love for you all to answer this question and throw it into the chat. Looking back on the past month, what is one thing that you're celebrating? Feel free to put in the chat, throw some confetti, unmute if you want to, share that way. What are you celebrating personally and professionally? Anything coming up? New projects going well so far? That's super exciting. There's always lots of projects at the end of the year. Finished a half marathon. Awesome job. That's fantastic. I know how much training went into that. Fresh snow. Yes, it is absolutely beautiful. I am very much itching to change the decorations in my house to match the outside. Absolutely. A friend has purchased a home. Oh, super, super exciting. That is a big task. So awesome. Love all the celebration. All right. So now, also presented research at a national conference. Amazing. That is not easy to do. So congratulations. I'm sure that was a huge goal of yours. All right, so why are we here today? What are we going to talk about? We are going to dive into trust. We are going to talk about why trust is so important, how it affects your business and your teams, and also how to effectively and powerfully build and scale trust with your team. And also this, we are here to learn, to grow, to connect, to have fun. It doesn't always have to be boring presentations. So hopefully we can bring a little fun and confetti to this evening. So now we can talk about trust. What is trust? Trust isn't something that just magically appears and remains until one day it mysteriously vanishes. No, trust doesn't happen by default. It happens by design. We say that trust is built by behaviors. Behaviors are what build trust with you and your relationships. Behaviors are what break trust. And trust is a set of learned behaviors. Another thing about touch is it's intangible. It's not something that you can physically touch. It's just something that you feel and you know. You can feel when you have trust in your relationships, and you also know when it's not there. Someone or something's actions are what create trust for you, but trust lives inside your mind and your thoughts and your heart and your feelings. So now that we talked a little bit about what trust is and kind of defining it for the presentation, now let's talk about why it's so important. I have a lot of reasons why I think trust is important, but before I dive into that, I want to turn it over to you. Take a minute, and I would love for you again to share in the chat, why is trust so important for you and your teams? Why do you want to build a foundation based on trust? Why do you want to strengthen your trust? What's coming up for you? Why is trust so important? Love this. We become a more effective team. Yes. Builds confidence and effectiveness. Absolutely. It encourages teammates to be honest and open 110%. Yes. Everyone's on the same page. Accountability. It's more fun. It helps you build relationships. Yes, yes, yes. All of these are why trust is so important. I love this. So a couple other reasons that I wanted to just share with you today. Research shows that a lack of trust affects your bottom line more than anything else in your organization. So think about it. Do you want to work for a leader that you don't trust? Do you want to work alongside a team that you don't trust? Do you want to even do business with a person you don't trust? I can't see you all, but hopefully you're shaking your head no. No, the answer is no. We want to work for leaders that we trust. We want to work with teammates we trust, and we want to buy products and services from people that we like and trust. So at the core, all of your issues are trust issues. We work with a lot of companies and they say, I want more productivity or higher employee engagement. We want a strong culture, a strong company culture. And that's great. That's fantastic. But they want us to focus on productivity and employee well-being and strong culture. But really, trust comes before all those other things. Trust comes before performance with your team, productivity, employee well-being. Trust comes before engagement, growth and scale of the company, a strong company culture, great leadership, and organizational success. We say that when you focus on trust, that becomes a catalyst for all these other things. Now, I love numbers, so let's dive into a couple numbers for talking about why trust is so important. Compared with people at low trust companies, people at high trust companies report 74% less stress, 106% more energy at work, 50% higher productivity, 76% more engagement, 29% more satisfaction with their lives, and 40% less burnout. These numbers are astonishing. We are all looking for ways to have less stress, higher productivity, and less burnout in our jobs. So let's focus on the one thing that has a huge impact in all these other areas. High trust teams, they experience increased collaboration, creativity, innovation, similar to what you all shared, higher levels of efficiency, strengthened communication, decreased stress and burnout, and a culture of belonging, connection, and high performance. So, in summary, everything that we talked about so far. 1, research shows a lack of trust affects your bottom line more than anything else. Check. Trust affects every area of your organization, and trust doesn't happen by default. It happens by design. So, you have to be intentional about building trust at your organization. It doesn't happen overnight. But this is easier said than done. Trust is complex. It's not something that you see or that you hand somebody like you hand somebody a piece of paper. It's not easy to build, maintain, or scale. And when you do it in a remote world or a hybrid world, it brings on a whole new set of challenges. So this is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. How do we do it? I know at this point in the presentation, you're like, yep, Emily, I'm bought in. I know why trust is important. I know what it is. I'm ready to do it. So how do we do it? How do we intentionally build trust to become a high-performing team? Remember what I said earlier. It's our behaviors that build trust. So let's focus on those behaviors today. Before we dive into the behaviors that I have for building
They
trust,
have this
I want you
seminar
to
for
all...
WiB that goes until 7. I thought it didn't start till 5:30.
I want you to all think of somebody in your life who you do not trust. I want you to write down in front of you, what are the behaviors that they engage in that break trust for you? What are the behaviors this person engages in that breaks trust for you? We'll just do about just 30 seconds. Feel free to put it in the chat, but
that
just
meant
kind
I
of
was going to
writing
have
it
time to
down.
come up and talk to
Think of someone who you do not trust. What are the behaviors they engage in? On the flip side, now I want you to think of somebody in your life who you completely trust, personally or professionally. What are the behaviors that they engage in that make you trust them more? I love one of the things put in the chat for behaviors that make you not trust people is action does not follow words, 100%. Dishonesty, and another great one. So now thinking of those people that you completely trust, what are the behaviors that they engage in that make you trust them more? All right, we're going to try something here. Let's see if it works. So we're going to do annotate. For those of you who have not done annotate before, if you take your mouse and you hover at the top of your screen, there's going to be a little down arrow, a little down caret. If you click on that and then click on the word annotate, you are going to be able to write on my screen. So I would love for you to make sure that you have your text box selected and write in one of these boxes. We'll try to break it up a little bit. What are the behaviors that make you trust somebody more? Again, it's going to be the little down caret. Then you're going to select the word annotate. And then make sure that you have text selected so you can type. And once you type, just do enter and it should pop up on the screen. Test, you got it. Calm and kind, yes, I love that. You trust people who act with kindness and have a calmness about them when you have conversations with them. Honesty, yes. Good listener, keep things confidential, absolutely. Consistent, consistent with your actions, consistent with showing up for your team, yes. No worries, Kimberly, I'm not getting it to work. I know it's a little bit different. So some people are putting it in the chat as well. Always do what you say, clear with boundaries, consistent, respectful, 100%. Absolutely. All of these are such amazing things to create trust on a team. All right, I'm just going to clear this quick. All right, there we go. Thank you for all using annotate. All right, so now let's talk about those 5 core trust behaviors that we have today as a framework to help build trust with your team. Those 5 core trust behaviors are connect, create safety, commit, be clear, and celebrate. I love that some of these you've already brought up in the behaviors that you find in the people that you trust. And so today we're going to dive into those a little bit more. I also want to call out that I know not all of us are in a hybrid or virtual world, but when we are, it creates a whole new set of challenges. So the two that are most difficult to do in a hybrid world are connect and safety. With each of these, we talk about tips to do these in person, and we'll also have remote tips for those of you that are in that hybrid or virtual world. So let's jump in. Core behavior number 1 is connect. We trust people we feel connected to. At its core, trust is about relationships, and relationships are built through genuine, meaningful connections. We trust leaders and teammates who demonstrate that they care about us on a professional and a personal level. So at the bottom line, when I feel seen, heard, and valued, that's when I trust you. Come into every situation with your team, making sure that they feel seen, heard, and valued. So what does this look like in action? What does connection look like in action? This means getting curious, and not only getting curious and asking questions, but then on the flip side, genuinely listening to other people. Ask powerful questions that help you get to know your teammates better, not only on a professional level, but their unique perspectives, their values, their goals, their aspirations. Then when you ask these questions, make sure that you listen to understand and not just respond. So often we listen to other people just focusing on what we're going to say next or how what they're saying is affecting us. But listen to just understand their perspective a little bit better. Another one is remember something your teammate said and follow up on it. It seems simple, but when you start asking these questions and learning about their perspectives, their values, their goals, their aspirations, then come back to it and bring it back up in a conversation. So ask them about a race that they were running, like the half marathon. Ask them about a child's birthday party. When you ask them about these, it'll show that not only did you hear what they said, but you also value who they are as a person outside of work and at the office. Another great way to build connection is through having one-on-ones or one-on-one time. 60% of workers say that one-on-ones build faster than any other action. So what does this mean? If you are having one-on-ones with your team, that's fantastic and keep having them. If you're not having one-on-ones with your team, try to incorporate ways that you can spend a little bit of one-on-one time with them. In that time, don't just ask about the projects they're working on and move the business forward, but also learn about them on a personal level. Bottom line, in everything that you do with this, be kind, compassionate, and authentic in your situations to build connection. So curate an environment for connection. What are a couple things you can do to kind of help build more connection? Eliminate distractions. We have so many distractions in our world, whether it be our phones or our laptops or our emails. So when you have somebody in front of you, try to eliminate as many as possible so it allows you to be present and focus your attention on the conversation in front of you. Ways to do this in person is closing your laptop or putting your computer to sleep. When somebody comes into your office, say, okay, I'm going to close out of my computer so my email's not dinging or my instant messaging isn't coming through, and you have my full attention. It is kind of hard to close your laptop in the virtual world, otherwise the whole conversation would end. So what does this look like virtually? If you can't close your laptop, actually say when you get on the meeting, okay, I am putting my phone on silent, putting it off, you have my attention. It may seem silly, but taking that time really shows them that you are being intentional on building that connection and showing them that you value their time. So turning off notifications and then making eye contact, turning on your screen and showing the people that you are engaged in a conversation. If you have a screen out to the side, say, hey, I'm just looking at the agenda over here. I'm not looking off into the distance. Or if you're taking notes on your desk, saying, if I'm looking down, I'm not checking Facebook, I'm just taking notes. So again, communicate those things that may seem simple to you. So the remote connection tip for connection. The remote connection tip. Use video. You can do this in a lot of different ways, but using video creates human connection. And this is crucial when you're working remotely. You can send videos back and forth instead of Teams messages or emails in your Slack. So when I record when I'm working on a proposal with one of my teammates, I'll turn on my camera and I'll record me going through the document together so they can see my reaction, my tone, my energy, and see what I'm talking about at the same time as them, as if we're looking at the same screen together. So try to incorporate videos as much as you can. So that was our first core trust behavior, connect. Next, create safety. We trust people we feel emotionally and psychologically safe with. When we feel safe, we speak up. We admit mistakes. We ask for help. We share ideas, and we just get to be ourselves. When we are in an environment where we don't have to cover up a mistake that we made and try to push it to the side and fix it before anybody finds out, or if we're kind of stuck on an idea and our wheels are turning, but we're not asking for help because we think that we need to get it done by ourselves, we're wasting time. We're breaking trust with other people. So we give our companies our all when we get to show up as our whole selves and we get to be vulnerable with those that we work with. So what does creating safety look like in action? Be vulnerable. Model safety by being vulnerable with your team. Saying things like, I made a mistake. I want to work on this. I need help. I don't know. I don't know is one of the most powerful things that you can say as a leader. It shows your team that you don't expect yourself to have all the answers or them to have all the answers. Another thing is celebrate your failures in front of your team. Every single person is going to fail. So when you do, say, hey, I tried this new thing, it didn't work, and here's what I learned. Or I tried this new thing, it didn't work, and now I need help to fix it. Show your team that you have a safe environment to do this. Hold non-judgmental space. So this allows others to express their feelings and ideas without judgment. Hold that safe space for your team to come to you and express everything that they're feeling, and know that you are not going to talk to other people about it, and you're going to hold that space for them. And assume positive intent. Come to every conversation that you have with your team, assuming that people are kind, fair, and trying their best with the information that they have available. I promise you, you will have such a different mindset and see such different results with this mindset. And when your team comes to you and they are complaining about something from one of their teammates, or they're stuck on a project and they don't know what to do next, ask them, did you assume positive intent in the situation? Just taking that step back and seeing what mindset they had when they approached the situation. The change is astonishing. A couple other things for what this looks like in safety. Be the vault. This comes to us from Brene Brown, and she describes this as don't share information or experiences that are not yours to share. I need to know that my confidences are kept and that you're not sharing with any information about other people that should be confidential. So be the vault for your team. Let them know that anything that they share with you in that safe space is not going to be shared with anybody else. And that also means not telling them things that other teammates shared with you. So hold that space and be the vault. Another way to do this is take ownership and apologize. With every situation that you encounter, make sure that you take a step back. See the piece that you own and the role that you play in that situation, and take ownership over it. And if need be, apologize for it. Remember that it's not about your intention with the situation, it's the other person's perspective. And lastly is acting with integrity. Do the right thing even when it's more difficult. We feel safe knowing that our leaders and coworkers are going to act with integrity no matter what. I know that my boss, whatever situation she encounters, that she is going to make the right decision even when it's the hard one. And I trust her for that. And I back up her decision because of that. So a couple remote tips for creating safety. Being vulnerable. What does this look like in a virtual world? Talk about your own struggles being in a hybrid or or a remote world, because everybody has them. So be the first to share in the group. Let your team know that this is a safe space where they can also talk about the struggles that they may have working from home. Leave loudly. I love doing this in the office, and you can do this virtually as well. So when you're in the office and you're going to leave a little bit early because you're going to your son's baseball game, let's say, if you leave the door or you leave the office at 4, you close your door, shut down your computer and say, hey, everybody, I'm out for the night. I'm going to go to my son's baseball game. I'll be back at 8 a.m. in the morning. Let me know if you need anything. This shows your team that you value work-life balance, that you encourage them to also do this, to work hard and to play hard. But virtually, it is a little too easy sometimes to sneak off your computer, shut off your Teams or your Slack or whatever you do for instant messaging and go on your way. So remember to remind your team that it's okay to leave when you need to hop back on later if that's what they need to do to get their job done. So model the behavior that they should be a whole person at the office and outside, and prioritize both. Or prioritize their time in the way that works best for them. Lastly is using breakout rooms. So on all these virtual meetings that we're having, the ideal safe space for people to share and to not slip into the background is about 5 to 7 people. But a lot of times we're not on virtual meetings with only 5 to 7 people. So if you do have a say, or if you are in control of the room, I encourage you to have breakout rooms where you have people talk about questions, review things together, share their ideas, and then come back together. This is a great way to model safety and giving everybody that time to not only connect with one another, but share their own ideas and thoughts. So that is 2, create safety. Now we are on to core trust behavior number 3, commit. We trust people when they do the things they say they're going to do. It's that simple. Reliability and follow through. Some of you mentioned it in the beginning. Absolutely. One of the fastest ways to destroy trust is to make commitments that you can't keep. One of our clients, they say this is your say-do ratio. They say, what's your say-do ratio? What's the ratio of things that you say you're going to do to what you actually do? So ask yourself, what's your say-do ratio? What does commit look like in action? This means that you don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself or demand them from your team. People are not malicious, and for the most part, people don't intentionally want to let you down. Most people do not walk into the office saying, I am so excited to make a lot of commitments today and not do any of them. No. People are committed. People make commitments because they're excited to contribute. They want to move the project forward. They want to share their expertise with them or those around them. But we're all busy. Unexpected things get added to our to-do list. Things get pushed off to the next day, and things don't get done. So don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself. Only commit to what you know you can follow through with. And this is going to help you deliver great work on time and is crucial to building trust with your team. A huge component of this is it requires you to know your own boundaries and your limitations. I encourage you all to take time to intentionally set boundaries for yourself of when you want to do work, how much time you need in your day in between meetings, holds that you have on your calendar, whatever a successful day looks like to you. It doesn't happen every day, but I encourage you to set those and then try to stick to them. It is one thing to set those boundaries. It's a whole nother thing to actually keep them. So take the time, get curious with yourself. What are boundaries that you need to set to make sure that you do the things that you say you're going to do? Now we are all going to come into situations where we commit to something that can't be done. I know it has happened for all of you, and it will happen again in the future. So when it does happen, when you commit to something that you understand can't be done, communicate that to your team ASAP. It is a much different conversation when you have a project that's due on Friday. You get budgets put on your desk and it took a lot longer than you thought. It is so much different to go to your team and say, hey, I know that I said I have this done by Friday, but it's not going to happen because this budget is taking a lot longer than I thought. versus next Tuesday saying, oops, sorry, that didn't get done. We can't move on in the next phase. The budgets took longer than I thought, and it just didn't happen. So communicate with your team ASAP. Well, wrong way. So remote tips. How do you do this remotely? Ask your team in what ways do they want to be held accountable remotely. People work different in the office and outside the office, and you can't see what they're working on every single day. So ask them, what ways do they like to be held accountable? That way you are measuring progress, you're measuring the things that they're getting done, but you're not micromanaging them as a person. Another way to do this is make it easy to see commitments and deadlines. So an example of this is a management tool called Asana. You can put all your projects in here, all the tasks for each one under the project. Then you can see what tasks are being completed, where the project is at, maybe where it's kind of stuck and who needs help, but make it easy to see and everybody can have access to it. So that program is called Asana, but I know that there's a lot of other project management tools out there to use. Be clear. How do we be clear? We trust people who are clear and consistent with their words, their intentions, and their actions. So ambiguity and confusion in all forms lead to distrust. And this can be confusion with expectations, priorities, goals, requests, processes, deadlines, roles and responsibilities, ownership areas, and even boundaries. Getting clear on all of these things is going to help you build trust with your team. We work with a company based in Madison called Boldly & Co. and their productivity company. And through their research, they found that 30% of the day is wasted because people aren't clear on who owns what and what they are supposed to be working on. So you want to talk about being more productive? Let's get clear with our teams. So what does this look like? Establish clear expectations, goals, objectives, deadlines, priorities, roles, ownership areas, and boundaries with your team. And once you set them, make sure that they are easy to get to so everybody can reference back to them at their own time and you can continue this clarity and consistency. Send an agenda before a team meeting to establish clear expectations and objectives for your time together. Take that time so everybody knows what the conversation is going to be about, what maybe they have to do prior to the conversation to make sure that it's a productive one. And I encourage you to stick to the agenda. Make sure that you are not going over on your time. Make sure that you're covering all the objectives that you set for the day. It is one thing to create an agenda. It is a whole other thing to throw the agenda out at every single meeting, because then you're not doing the things that you say you're going to do. Create policies that clarify expectations and are easy to find. So an example of this is a policy for how we communicate here. I will use the perk as an example for this. We have a how we communicate here policy, and a couple of the things that we have included in this policy is 1, email is only for external use. If I want to talk to anybody on my team, I use Slack. I should not be sending emails to anybody inside the company. 2, Slack. So Slack, I don't need to be on 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. There's no gold star for having my green dot for 12 hours a day. They say that it is something that you should be checking into at a minimum of 2 times a day. Another thing for how we communicate here is if it is an emergency or I need to respond ASAP, then you call or text me. So that's why I don't need to be on Slack all day long, because we know that if you need to get a hold of me, that I have my phone. Another thing is that if I'm typing out a message in Slack and it's a paragraph or longer, instead of sending that, I send either a voice memo or a video. That is going to capture so much more of my tone, details, and everything else along with what I'm trying to communicate. So those are just a couple examples of how we have set expectations at the perk to communicate. But I encourage you to do this with your team. What are some expectations that you have for communicating with each other? And make sure it's clear. Next, provide direct, clear feedback. And this part, I should have bolded or underlined, with kindness and respect. You should not fear negative feedback. You should fear silence. When people give feedback, they want others to improve and they see potential in them. So make sure that you are providing clear and direct feedback in the moment when it's happening. And keep this in mind, this also comes to us from Brene Brown, that clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So, a couple remote tips here. Share your screen when viewing a document on a call or record it so they can view it later. Like I shared earlier, if I'm going to send a message to somebody on my team and it's a document that we're both reviewing, I'll share my screen so they're not trying to find what page I'm talking about or what paragraph I'm talking about. We're reviewing it together as if we're looking at the same computer. Another document you can create is a remote rules of engagement. So something that you might include in this document is on all meetings that we have, our screens on or off. Set clear expectations around this so you can continue to grow trust in your team together. Proactively check for clarity. When you're working remotely, you can't just pop into somebody's office or check in the hallway on how a project is going. So you should proactively ask yourself, is there clarity on this project? Should I be checking in on them? When was the last time that I had a conversation with that person? When you start to feel like a broken record, that is when your team is going to begin to start hearing you. So keep asking for clarity, keep checking in with those around you. Ask your team to reflect back on what your priority or assignment is. So I encourage you, after you give directions or after you have a conversation, ask yourself or ask the other person, now, can you repeat back to me what the goal of this project is? Or can you let me know how I phrase successes for this project? Because you may think that you're being clear when you're actually not. So ask that other person, invite them into the conversation and make sure that clarity is there. And last, but certainly not least, is celebrate. You had to know this one was coming because we'd started with confetti and it's a presentation from the perk. So core trust behavior number 5, celebrate. We trust people who believe in us and our abilities and want us to be successful. We trust those who demonstrate that they recognize, appreciate, and celebrate us, not just for who we are, but what we do. Every single person shares the biological need to be seen, heard, and valued. And not only for our accomplishments, but also just who we are as people. So genuinely cheering somebody on and supporting them in their achievements of their goals is a powerful way to build trust with your team. We all want to be on teams who feel joy in watching us succeed and take time to celebrate not only our professional wins, but our personal wins too. So what does this look like? How do you incorporate this into your team? Be the one to celebrate others, model this behavior, shout out a teammate in your next team meeting for an awesome thing that they accomplished, or you can write a handwritten note to express your gratitudes towards a teammate. There's so many different ways to celebrate people. Ask your team to create personal goals in addition to professional ones. In my annual review and every single year, I set not only professional goals, but personal goals. Because when you work on both of these areas, you are going to be a more well-rounded person and a better teammate leader, and you are going to be more invested in them and all of their successes. Something that I love to remind people is just ask your team how they like to be celebrated or how they like to be valued. Everybody is different, and you shouldn't celebrate them in the ways that you like to be celebrated most. You should celebrate them in the ways that they like to be celebrated most. And you might not know that. So just ask them. Ask them. A remote tip, make celebrating easy. So create a confetti channel in your Teams or your Slack or whatever way that you communicate with your team members. A way to do this really easy is using Zapier. So this is a program where you can bring two softwares together. That is
Happy birthday, Frank.
kind of breaking it down. So for example, if you have DocuSign and somebody signed on DocuSign and you signed on a new client, you can have a Zapier, bring it to your confetti channel, and you can celebrate that as a team. If you finished a project in Asana that we were talking about before and you completed all the tasks, Zapier can say, oh, all the tasks are done. We're going to send a zap to your team's celebration channel, and you can all celebrate this project being completed. So find ways to automate the celebration. A second way is send a voice memo or videos with your celebration when it's virtual. Here in this picture is an example from my world. I redid our whole newsletter a few months ago, and I sent it to my boss for her approval, and she sent me a video back with her excitement and her edits and everything that she wanted to talk about. So this is a screenshot of her face when I opened the video. And she could have messaged me, "Great job on this. I absolutely love the new format." But when she sent me this and I could see her facial expressions, I could see her excitement, I could hear her tone. She could say the exact same thing, but it brought so much more with it because I could hear her communicating so many more things than just the words. So the next time you reach out to somebody or you want to send a note that says, "Hey, great job on this," think if it would be more impactful to send a voice memo or a video along with it. So those are the 5 core trust behaviors: connect, create safety, commit, be clear, and celebrate. So at a party, when you have all this confetti, an individual piece of confetti is called a confetto. So we like to think of these as individual trust confettos. And when you bring them all together, you throw a trust party. You bring all your confettos together, your trust confettos together to have trust confetti. And what is the only thing that makes confetti better? A confetti cannon, to share the excitement, to share the trust with those around you. So what is our confetti cannon? What is going to make trust even more impactful? It's consistency. Consistency in everything that you do. Every single interaction that you have with somebody is going to either increase or decrease your trust. There is no trust neutral interaction that you can have with somebody. So all of these 5 core trust behaviors need to be done consistently to build trust. You don't build trust with somebody because you had lunch with them once 6 months ago, or you don't build trust with somebody because they were clear in a meeting last week one time. No, every single day show up to create trust with your team and to bring these 5 core trust behaviors to life. So our scaling trust equation, we start with those 5 core trust behaviors. We add consistency, and that is how you scale trust on your team. So I have a couple questions for you that I want you to reflect on, and I also encourage you to bring them back to your team to continue this conversation. So out of these 5 core trust behaviors, which one are you best at? Write it down. I would love for you to know which one of these are you best at? Which one do you want to work on? Not which one should you work on, which one do you want to work on? Next question is, which one is your team best at? Which one of these core trust behaviors is your team best at? And lastly, which one, if mastered, would have the greatest impact on your team? Now, I would love to hear your opinions on this last one. So throw it in the chat. Which one of these 5 core trust behaviors would be most impactful if mastered? Great clarifying question. Which one, if mastered, would have the greatest impact for your team? So which one, if your whole team mastered this core behavior, would have the greatest impact? What's coming up for people? Which one is sticking out to you, would have the greatest impact for your team? Be clear. Yes, absolutely. Yep. So again, clear, commit, clear in all caps. Love it. Got very clear on which word is going to be the most impactful. Bring these back to your team. Continue the conversation. Talk to them about what core trust behaviors you want to see with them. Now, if we are going to be talking about building trust, we also have to talk about breaking trust. Like building trust, behaviors are what break trust. And most of the times it's unintentional. But the thing to note with breaking trust is it's the small things here that are important. Every small broken promise is something that erodes trust. And we have to talk about this because trust is inevitably going to break on your team. So you have to be intentional. It's important for you to know and communicate what behaviors build and break trust for you. Because when you get clear on what's important for you and what builds and breaks trust for you, then you can communicate this to your team so they don't unintentionally break your trust. And vice versa, it's so important for you to know and communicate what behaviors build and break trust for your team so you don't unintentionally break their trust. So ask them what kind of behaviors build trust for them or break trust for them. A great way to do this, because it's sometimes a weird question to bring up, is the question that I asked you earlier in this presentation. Ask them to think of somebody in their life who they completely trust, and what are the behaviors that they engage in that make them trust them? Or ask them who is somebody in your life that you don't trust? What are the behaviors that this person engages in that make you don't trust them? Then start from there and go from there. So what does this look like in action? Collaborate with your team. Discuss not only what behaviors you want to see with your team and what behaviors are going to build trust, but talk about what's going to happen with our team when trust breaks. What is a good way that we can approach the conversation to make sure that it's a productive conversation when trust breaks on our team? So I'll walk you through an example. This is one that we actually have at the Perk. We got together and we decided that when trust breaks on our team, we first just take a step back and reflect on the situation. We work to return to an emotionally clear state before we speak with that other person. When we do finally come to that conversation, we assume positive intent. We assume that that other person is kind and working with the most tools that they have available to them. We also focus on the behavior and not the person. We make observations and not judgments. An observation could be, I see you didn't turn in this project on Friday when we had our deadline. A judgment is, I gave you this deadline on Friday and obviously you didn't care about it because you didn't get this project done and you prioritize so many things over it and you don't care about the success of our team. So make observations about what's happening, not judgments. And lastly, we decided that we are going to discuss the situation one-on-one when we feel safe to do so. So this is what we brought together and what looks safe and good for us to talk about trust when it's broken. So bring this back to your team, start the conversation so you can all build trust together. And even having this conversation is going to help you start to build trust with your team even more. Woo! You made it! You learned all about the 5 core trust behaviors and what to do when trust is broken on your team. So exciting. So, what's next? My call to action to you. We have discussed a lot of things today. We have covered a lot of ground. So where do we go from here? 1, continue to talk about trust together. Continue to bring this back to your teams and ask them what behaviors build trust for you, what behaviors break trust for you. Share what you learned and share what behaviors build and break trust for you. Then commit to team behaviors that will build trust with your team. Remember those 5 core trust behaviors or whatever behaviors you come up with, plus consistency, that is what's going to scale trust in your team. And lastly, talk about with your team what to do when trust inevitably breaks, because it will. When you have all these conversations, you will build so much trust going forward, and people will have clear expectations of how to act and what behaviors to bring to their team and which ones to not. So that is all the content that I have for you about building trust. And it was so much fun talking to all of you about hearing about trust. I would love to hear for future events, what things do you want to learn more about? Which things would you like more training on with this group? Feel free to throw it in the chat. I would love to hear. What are some things that you would like to learn more about or things you would like more training on? There's so many fun topics out there to really dive into. I also, if anybody has any questions, I know we have a couple minutes left, so feel free to put those in the chat. Otherwise, I will give out my email address and feel free to reach out to me separately. But feel free, share your ideas. What are something that you want to hear more about at these events? What are something that you want more training on? What are you excited to learn more about? Tips on engaging remote teams. That's a fantastic topic. Yes. What else? What else do people want to learn more about? How to have hard conversations, like when trust is broken, how to talk about it. That is an excellent conversation to have and an awesome training. So many people say, have the hard conversations, don't shy away from them. But nobody talks about actually how to do it. So yes, I think that's awesome. The difference between respect and trust. Yes, that is a fantastic one. Grace, I'll follow up with you on the side about that. So yes, any other ideas, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'd love to hear what other things you would like training and what you're excited to learn more about. But that is all that I have for you. You are all so amazing and you are accomplishing so many incredible things. I am so excited to just be here for a little portion of your day to share with you some of the fun things that I love talking about. And so I would love to continue the conversation. I'm going to follow up with some of you afterwards, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to learn more about this. But I so appreciate you all having me today. I can turn things over to Christina. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. Risa, do we have any other announcements that we wanted to make?
I don't think so, but I did want to provide some clarification. I think that Emily wasn't just asking about training from the PERC, but she was also just asking in general what all women in biohealth in this group might be interested in getting training in the future. And if there's anything that you want to add really quick, just so we have the note, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. I should have clarified. So not just bringing me back, but all training.
It looks like nothing. You did a fantastic job, Emily. Thank you so much. I enjoyed your energy during the presentation. Very engaging.
Good. Oh, I'm so glad. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciated it.
it.
Absolutely. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Everyone, there will be a recording coming out, so wait for it via email. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.